the Lighthouse Factory podcast. Welcome and thank you for joining us on our debut episode of the Lighthouse Factory podcast. We're your hosts, Brian and Marlon Benavides. I can't tell you how thrilled we are today to be here with someone that I've been a fan of for quite some time. It is my pleasure to introduce to you musician, rapper, meditation coach, voiceover artist. I think the list goes on and on. Born, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, and I appreciate all the kind words. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And Born, I remember when now DJ Mike Lujan, the brother of a mutual friend of ours, John, told me about you, and I ran across Shambhala, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like, wow, this guy's genuinely one of the most purposeful rappers that I've heard in a long time. And I've now had the pleasure of seeing you put out collaborations with various artists, including Bassnectar, Mos Def. You've put out hip hop, EDM, house music, and blessed stages such as EDC in Vegas, Deja Vu in Mexico, performed in Taiwan. Yeah. It really just blows my mind how much you've been able to do.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's been a pretty prolific experience. I was saying to myself, I was talking to one of my DJs and my best friend, AB Logic. He was digging through an old USB from like 2006, and it was maybe one of my first house music collaborations that was on this stick. And from there, we started digging into older files, and man, there's just so much music that's been recorded, so much that hasn't been released. And, it reminded me that I really, really enjoy the process of creating. I really had to make it a discipline to get the music out there. So that's why you see a lot of the collaborations that I do out and about, but my own projects, are a little bit slower to roll out. So finally, I'm rolling this album out right now, plus more. But I love to write and record and create across genres. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of stuff.
I genuinely believe you're like a great storyteller, lyricist, writer. And I always think back at one of the songs that originally caught my attention, which was titled Blue, where you talk about growing up down on Belpre Road, which is right around the corner where I spent some time. That's funny. Spend some time makes me feel like I did jail time, but that's not what happened, right? But you go over some pretty intimate stuff there. And I know that one of the most challenging topics that people that are looking to start face is, how do I start? Where do I start? I think back at that video and I wonder how you got started. What kind of led you down the music path? I've seen you do groups, and now you're Born and doing projects all over, which is amazing to me. I've seen G&D Sinatra, all these different things that you've done, which Born Infinite, which have been pretty exciting.
Yeah. Again, thanks, man. It means a lot that the work that I'm doing has an impact, that's positive, man. So I appreciate everything that you're saying. And so my path started musically with John Lujan.
Oh, that's funny.
So basically, John and I went to elementary school together for like a couple years, and then I didn't see him for a while. So I ended up going to a high school called St. John's, which is a military school out on Military Road in DC.
Yeah.
It turns out on orientation day that I hadn't seen John Lujan for years because he had gone to middle school and was starting high school at St. John's.
Oh, wow.
So his mom and my mom, they knew each other. We started to carpool. So every morning we'd carpool, and for about a month, John would get in the back seat, hang his head down. He had this big floppy hairdo, so he had his hair all over his eyes. He'd get back in the back seat and just wouldn't say anything. So we would get all the way up to school. I'd play the radio. Man, after a month, he said to me, after we got out of my mom's car, very, very like monotone, "Yo, man, if we're going to continue to carpool together, you're gonna have to listen to better music." And John was a very straightforward, little thugged out kid back in the day. And he made me a mixtape because I was behind the ball. I'm the child of African immigrants. I wasn't really plugged into everything that was happening in the American Black music experience at that time. It was just the radio. So I wasn't hip to the underground hip hop movement that was happening on the East Coast and everything like that. So John made me this tape of Wu-Tang, Jeru the Damager, Mobb Deep, Black Moon, and Nas.
Oh, wow.
And that changed my life. You know, my mind was completely blown, and I started to curve my ambition towards the music arts. And Wu-Tang Forever album is what cemented it for me, that music is really what I wanted to spend my life doing. And so that's the origin story.
That's the start.
So when did you know that you wanted to go about this full time? Because I heard, if I remember correctly, that you studied, I think it was AU, and you were going towards law. When did you switch to say, you know, I'm going to focus on music?
I decided I was going to focus on music the summer before I went to college. And so my dad gave me this speech. It says, Ofosu, your mother has told me you are only choosing schools in the area because you want to stay close to your rap group. If I find out you are rapping even one word, I will cut off your school fees faster than you can say Jack Smith.
That's funny because I think I've seen your dad on some of the things that you've posted. He seems extremely supportive.
He's super supportive, but it was a fight at first, to convince him that this was a viable path. So it turned out, though, that fate would have a different attitude than my dad, because my roommate at the time had come to AU to be an audio technology major. So the first order of business for him was to set up a studio in our dorm room.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I had a studio in my dorm room. And so from that room grew this new kind of renaissance in underground DC music, because Deborah Bond was there, Tim Hicks from the Cornell West Theory was there, Tony Hicks, Indigo Rose, myself, and rappers from Baltimore. So and rappers from the DMV area. So it really was a special experience. So I really wanted to do music from my senior year in high school, and I really started in college. I wasn't really doing too much academics in college. The hardest academic years of my life were in high school, because it was just really rigorous. So I could kind of float through college.
You've always struck me as extremely driven, charismatic, but also something that I've always appreciated is you've been extremely humble and a respectful person. And even me asking you to do this was not as scary as I thought it would feel to say, hey, Born, will you do this? And I know we met originally when I was working with music and dealing with some producers. And I remember when I heard the track that we talked about originally, and I said, you know, I got to get this track to this guy. I think he can kill this. And then we talked about a different project afterwards. But I think back at like what it was like for me to consider starting. And I'm kind of curious, were you the kind of person that felt, hey, I'm going to be where I am today? Or did you have hesitations or concerns?
I'll say this, and it's as a parent now, and for anybody who is on the receiving end of hearing someone else's dream, or someone shared their dream with you for the first time, or really any time, the best thing you can do is to give them a vote of confidence, or at least say, hey, you've got my support, go out there and do it. And I got that from my mom. The day that I decided that I was going to take this on as my life path, my mom was in Ghana burying her dad. And I called her and I said, Mom, you know, I want to rap. I want to do music. And her first words were, oh, and you will. And she's never wavered from that position. And so having the support from my mom gave me this really strong sense of confidence. And then I believed so deeply in everyone that was around me at the time, all of the artists that I was working with. I had this almost naive belief that everything was going to happen like right then. And so that didn't turn out to be the case. But the challenges kind of came after that sense of ambition is tested, after feeling like, oh, we got this, we're going to do this, it's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, or something gets derailed, or personal life difficulties or tragedies, or you're all of a sudden wrestling with depression, anxiety, things like that. All these things start to get in the way, and they can sort of shake your confidence. So for me, it's kind of opposite. It wasn't any trepidation to begin, but over the course, sustaining the drive, that met with challenges.
You know, it's funny because I remember when you and I spoke and we met up and you said, so why aren't you singing?
I thought
I was
so,
like, no,
man.
I'm just writing for people. And you said, no, you should do it.
For real.
And in that moment, I was like, maybe I should. And it was one of the things that really was motivating. And it's good to have people who support you and kind of plant that seed of confidence to say, no, you can do this. And I think about, it's great that you had your mom supporting you and planted that for you. Is there others that you would say, really pushed to motivate you or inspired you to say, this is for sure my thing? Or is it more of kind of your mom, you built kind of a confidence for yourself, said, hey, I can do this. And then as things went along and people were supportive, that kind of turned into that?
That's a great question. I just made this post on Instagram and Facebook about sort of struggling with not always believing in myself and wrestling with doubt and negative ideation about myself, etc. The love and support that I got from my girlfriend, then fiance, then wife, all of that was paramount. If your partner is not believing in you, especially when it's easy to not believe. If your partner, I'll flip it. If your partner is still believing in you when it's hard, like when I'm not bringing in any money, there's no evidence that this is viable. We have kids, I'm gambling the family on this dream essentially. And my wife never, ever in all these years said, maybe you should try something else, or this isn't working for me. It was just always unwavering support. So I'm fortunate that even when I wanted to throw in the towel, have asked my wife, like, hey, is it time for me to do something else when things weren't happening? And she said, I think it would be a real loss for the world if you gave up. Wow. I'm fortunate to have the support of family. And also I'm so inspired by the artists that are around me. And then there are younger artists that I work with that I feel responsible for finishing the mission, so to speak, and fulfilling my promises to my fellow artists that, hey, as far as I get is as far as I'll help you get. So yeah, it's been a lot of support and encouragement from the people around me. And then ultimately me developing my own inner voice, inner positive voice to help me continue to sustain this.
And I know when it comes down to getting a lot of positive, there's always going to be a lot of negative that you're going to see coming at you from the other end. How do you deal with that, like going through that whole process? Because as an artist, I know we're judgmental and a lot of times we're very trying to figure out who we are and what we're going to be doing. And it's hard when you have somebody on the other side telling you that's not who you are, that's not what you're going to be. How do you answer to that?
That's a great question also, because you're right. We ourselves as human beings, as artists, we're just trying to figure out our own selves. Yeah. And there are people in the industry who, through their own experience and their own viewpoint, have an idea about how you should be and who you should be. And to their credit, they have the best intentions. They're wanting to share their knowledge with you. But all of our paths are different, and there's not one way to do this. I've realized that as a sensitive, empathetic person, I do take the opinions of other people to heart. I do. As much as I want to say that I'm so strong, that I don't. Yeah. Number one, human beings have a tendency towards focusing on the negative. It's called negativity bias, and it's a way that we developed problem-solving skills over time as prehistoric beings. We still have that now. So whenever you can get 1 million likes, one negative comment, you're going to think about that negative comment. And so I realized after a while that I'm not enjoying myself if I'm trying to avoid the landmine of everybody's viewpoint about me. It's like, okay, well, you're a lyricist, so it should only be hip hop. well, you've done EDM now, so you should only do that, and you shouldn't come back to hip hop. Well, nobody wants to hear hip hop anymore. They only want to do this. Or you should find a way to mix the two. Your style shouldn't be this. You shouldn't say this. You should, all that. Art is a feeling. And if I'm not having fun, that's what's going to translate.
Mm-hmm.
And I've just tried to remember to go with what feels good.
That makes perfect sense.
I want to say this really quickly because I don't want to lose track of this, but super shout out to your wife.
Oh, man.
Because I'm glad you're still doing this.
Oh, God. Yeah. Super shout out.
I really appreciate your awareness of kind of the psychology and your awareness of self. I want to say that because you kind of were one of the first people that sparked my thought of I know you were a student of Buddhism and were practicing meditation and all of that. And that kind of sparked my creativity. And even in the most recent times, I found it extremely helpful where I take moments to kind of pause and center myself and be present. And it's allowed me to refocus, especially after my recent accident, which I've mentioned to you before.
How you doing anyway?
I'm doing really good, actually. I cannot complain.
That's awesome.
I feel extremely blessed, lucky to
Awesome.
be spending time with family, doing things like this, spending time with people like yourself. I am really at a point in my life where I just want to take advantage of everything that I have. And it's been a journey of continuing to kind of learn about myself. I went to school for psychology and social work. And to me, that's always been something that I've kind of thought about for myself is am I aware? Am I teaching the things I want to teach with my actions? Am I learning from people that I want to learn from? Am I sharing with the people that I want to be sharing with? And it hit really heavy after the accident where I said, I have a moment to think for the first time in my life because I take on multiple projects all the time. It's one of these things where I have to keep busy. And it kind of reminds me of you. I think that you do a lot of different things. You're a family man. You have all these different projects. I'm kind of curious how you juggle everything.
First of all, I'm so glad that you're on the other side of the accident and you're thriving post accident. That's something definitely to be grateful for, man. As someone who cares about you. So yeah. I don't know what my personality type is, but I can tell you that it is difficult for me to feel like I'm being effective if I'm only doing one thing. The challenge for me is to give my full attention to whatever it is that I'm doing in the moment.
Yeah.
But I like being engaged in multiple projects and living on multiple tiers or multiple levels. It just makes me feel alive, worthwhile, like I'm contributing,
Yeah.
I've always multitasked. I don't even think that's the right word for it.
What I think is funny is when we were trying to schedule this interview and you said, hey, can you send this invite here so that my family's aware that we're about to have this? And that was one of the things that I was like, that's a smart thing. I should probably do that for my family.
Yeah, because it's not just me that looks at the calendar.
Right.
So as everyone looks at the calendar, they know, all right, this is what daddy's doing, or this is what, husband is doing. Yeah. I started my family at a young age. I was still in college when we had our first child and had just graduated after we had the second. And then we took a long break, but still 2 kids when you're like 20, it's a lot.
Same, yeah.
And I was starting a music career at that time. Maybe that's what happened. I started a family. I was really starting my professional music career around that time. I was really engaging in my meditation practice and starting to teach not too far after that. And these 3 things, music, family, meditation, they've all gone together for me always. So they continue to. And it's not always easy to do all of them and to fulfill the expectations that come with all of them. So there's definitely challenges around that.
Yeah, for sure. I think we also just briefly touched on kind of appreciation and enjoying what you're doing. I'd like to hear from you kind of some of the lessons you feel the most appreciative of and what you've learned throughout your journey, what you've enjoyed.
Artistically, probably the greatest thing that I have learned is that art is a feeling. It's not a technique. It's not a genre. It's not a style or even a medium. All techniques, styles, mediums, forms are conduits to deliver a feeling. I wish I would have known that earlier when I was so focused on technique and maybe not as focused on delivering just that sort of primal feeling. But I'm glad that I've realized that now, and it informs how I approach creating. So art is a feeling is something that I've learned, and that's what I would love to share with any artist. The other thing is I like to ask artists, what is it that you want people to come away with after they experience your art? Whatever the answer is to that. For instance, for me, I want people to feel empowered, inspired, and seen. If you know what you want to communicate to people through your art, chances are you're able to communicate those same things to people just through how you live your life, so that your art doesn't have to be the only place where you express your highest ideals, but that just how you live is how you can communicate those things. And then you'll feel less pressure to do it all through your art. It'll just be how you live. And art is one of the ways that you express that life purpose. Yeah. What I'm grateful for is that I'm still here and able to create and talk about the evolution of my life and me and my process, be able to connect with fans and and to do things like this.
Well, what I'll say is that I'm extremely grateful for what you just said, because I truly think what you just said is extremely powerful and I think is extremely valuable. So thank you for sharing that. And frankly, one of the things that I was just thinking about that now made me hesitate, because, you know, it's you mentioned not getting too lost in kind of the technique, but going about the feeling. And some of the things that come to mind to me sometimes are, you know, what would you like to know sooner about the business or the industry? Because I think that's something that caught me by surprise a little bit. Was I guess the emotions around some of the things I heard when I was putting out music from labels, other producers, other companies that we were working with, where they reacted a certain way that really threw me off, that I wish I would have known a little bit sooner.
Man, it's, you know, the businesses are made up of people, you know, and people have ways and actions, and so for sure, this, and there are as many ways to do business as there are people. I would say from a professional standpoint, having a good lawyer is very powerful. Cannot overstate that.
I completely agree, I think.
Shout out to Counsel LLP, my legal team. I love y'all.
Nice.
And publishing. Don't let labels take your publishing. I didn't know that, labels will just jack your publishing in a contract. They have no right to that. That's like, your publishing is essentially your birthright. It's yours. It's yours.
Yeah.
You can't just, but you don't know anything. You're just like happy to sign a contract. Man, they'll just get you. And you can literally just say, don't include any publishing language in this contract. And 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, you caught me. Okay, I won't.
That's good to know. That's a really good one.
Don't let anybody take your publishing. You can let people manage it and give them a little cut. That's fine. But don't let anybody take your publishing, man. Yeah.
That's great to hear. I'll say, too, that I do want to touch on this, too, because I know you've done beyond music, other things. If you've touched, I'll touch on, I've seen that you were the voice of Stanley on the animated series, the Ollie and Moon Show.
Yeah.
I think my kids have seen that, which is funny because I was pulling it up earlier and they're like, oh yeah. I was like, oh, that's so funny. I'm curious how you came across that.
Man, you know, that was one of those things that just serendipitous. You know, my friend Carrie Pompeo was working at Beat Street Studios in New York. they were casting for Ollie and Moon. The character of Stanley the Snail was intended to be this like very nerdy Caucasian voice. And Carrie, she's like the reception. She was the office manager, receptionist there, but she has an engineering background. She just hit me up on the random and was like, they're casting for this cartoon. I think the voice that they want is all wrong. I can hear you as the voice of this. Just here, read a couple lines from this script and I'll slide it into them. And it changed the whole concept of what they wanted to do for Stanley. But yeah, I ended up getting the role. And so it was just a blessing. Like now that I have voiceover representation and I do a lot of voiceover auditions, I realize how impossible it is to get a voiceover booking for the most part, because so many people are vying for one thing. So that was just so lucky and a huge blessing at the time, because things had gone kind of topsy-turvy with music, and that was just something that came in and saved the day.
I'm kind of curious because I did one little project where I think someone was doing a video game and needed a pirate. And I said, why not? I'll send a little voice thing. But I thought about it like multiple times is, how do I want to change my voice? How do I want to do this? Did you just go natural and say, this is how I'm going to read it and I'm going to read it? Or did you go like multiple attempts?
Well, for Stanley, it was really... And so there are people like Tara Strong, who does so many voices across and can change her voice to be anything. I don't have that kind of dynamic vocal elasticity that someone like Tara Strong has. Someone like Kevin Conroy, who's just amazing at one thing, Batman. That's kind of, I'm not putting myself on the same level as Kevin Conroy, but I'm just saying that I don't have this big dynamic range. So when I did Stanley, I just like took me and was like, what if I was always just at this level all the time? And that became Stanley. Yeah. It's kind of...
Yeah, it's funny because, like I said earlier, I think you're really charismatic, and there's something about your voice that's very you gravitate towards. Man. So that's pretty cool. And Marlon is one that I've always kind of been jealous of, and now more than ever, because now I had I
hear that voice.
I had a trach, but he'll play around, and they tell him all the time to do voices. He's always done that. That's how we got entertained when we were kids. Our first computer was something we took out of a trash can when I was like 17, and I tried to put together. Wow. So we had to find ways to keep busy. And Marlon was one of these guys who would just joke around and make all these random voices.
So who's the older? Who's the younger?
You can't tell.
He looks older, but I'm definitely older.
No, I can't tell. No, I can't tell. That's not a diss to either one of y'all. Y'all both look young.
It's fine. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. I got a baby face. It's gonna be good for me when I'm in my 40s.
Hey, for sure.
Yeah, I think I have the voice for radio. Let's put it that way.
Oh man, both of y'all handsome guys.
I have that voice down.
The face for radio it is. I'm sorry.
No, really, that computer really helped a lot, man. YouTube. I sat there constantly and just nothing but watching videos, which was part of what I was going to ask you earlier. When Brian said about the advice that you wish you had now when you first started. Things have changed so much since you probably first started. I mean, we all look a little bit mature, so that means that there's been some time since phones, IG, Facebook. Yeah. Like, what are some of the things that you were doing then that you're no longer doing as much now?
Oh my God. We were just talking about that. I was just my mom just brought me the first demo tape I ever had. It was a real fucking tape. And so that's just one thing. We used to record on a Tascam 4-track mixer. Yeah. Hardware with a 80-minute Maxell tape. And you recorded on that. And I mean, people used to use hard disks in the MPC. I don't know if they still do that. I don't think so. But I mean, just the technology. So, I mean, that was like when I was real young. Yeah, when I was real young, that was like the phasing out of the hardware era, and then we started getting into the software era, and then you got unlimited tracks and Pro Tools and all that stuff, and now, you know, this is my setup to record music in the house. You know, it's
crazy how easy it's become.
I got this set up for my second born, who is also an artist, and we got this for them for Christmas. And I still go to the studio to record. But then the pandemic happened, and I was like, man, I'm still getting, well, all these DJs are home now, so they're asking for vocals. So I'm getting a lot of work. And so, God, if I can't go to the studio, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I was like, hey, can I try your little, you know, bedroom setup? Man, this is like the most professional shit.
Yeah, it works.
It worked. For real.
Marlon, do you remember when we didn't have a MIDI piano, so we had to like convince the keyboard that it was a piano.
Yeah.
We would use like certain letters for certain keys.
Wow.
Be on Fruity Loops all day. Fruity
Loops making music.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
That's so funny.
And Mom, what were you about to say? Yeah.
I was gonna say, what about promotion? Like what are some of the things that helped with promoting yourself now? Like back then, I'm sure you were probably posting things on the college campus with a little tear, like, here's my number, call me for beats.
Absolutely,
like,
man.
how much has that changed, and how has it made it easier, I would say? Because I mean, you say the studio's easier. Obviously now you can just go into your room, maybe use a pillow. Brian's always telling me, Marlon, put a pillow somewhere, like kill some of the acoustics. But what are some of the things that have changed that way?
Yeah, I mean, we used to print flyers and go hand in hand promoting open mics and my new project and this and that. You know, you stand outside the rave, stand outside the rave at 4 a.m. Just handing out flyers. Everyone's getting out. Everyone's eyes are as big as
everybody's
golf
focused.
balls. Yeah. Yes, and you bam, hand in hand. So these days, and you know, it evolved from there to email, and you know, these days you have Instagram, and I mean, what's great for me is building, you know, a focused community. You know, so the Born Eye family group that I have on Facebook, you know, that's just a great place for me to let people know everything that's going on with my life in music, mindfulness, family, etc. Instagram is also a great place. So I really love those two. My Instagram page and the Born Eye family page are great. And I'm still learning the art of putting a little bit of money behind ads. Yeah. Sometimes I just, you know, throw paper at it and see what sticks. But I know there's an art to it. So yeah, but promotion, there's a new puzzle, but it definitely is easier. And I think it's best when you collect the community of the people who really care and you talk to them.
Yeah, no. Find the audience. I mean, reading the audience is important, and you can't read the audience if you don't know them and stay in touch with them. So it's really important to follow that way.
And I'll put this out there because I think one of the things that I struggled with originally is you would put out, let's say, some content, and I'm curious how you feel about this. And you would say, oh, it only has X number of views. And I put out some stuff that got, let's say, a few thousand views. I was like, oh, that's doing good. That's doing good. I'm proud of that. And then something that got maybe half as much. And it's funny because when I would talk to people, they would say, that's the one that stood out to me the most.
Yeah.
And it wasn't so much about the views anymore. To me, in that moment, it was, you know, is it still making an impact? And am I building a core audience versus numbers?
Yeah.
And I think sometimes people get lost in those numbers. Now, don't get me wrong. I think numbers helps in a lot of different ways for different things, but I think I would tell someone, you know, focus on the quality and making an impact in a connection, which is why I love your Born Eye family Facebook group.
Yeah, it's tough, man, because numbers are concrete and like numbers are concrete. All these numbers are so-called concrete, and they're designed for you to analyze as data immediately, like this is working or this is not working.
Yeah.
But it's more nuanced than that. And ultimately, like, are you happy with yourself with what you put out? I mean, right now, the single that I just put out, Guillotine with Tenka, it's off to it got off to a slightly slower start than what I was expecting. And then I talked to the label and they're having some issues. So I'm like, all right, okay. But it did make me question was this a good record after all? And then you have to say to you, then I had to listen to it. It's like, instead of just looking, I'm like, no, this song is amazing. Whatever, dude, this song is amazing. And then turns out that there's like an ad glitch with the label, so those numbers are not even reflective. But yeah, the numbers are important, but the quality is important and is most important. And I think I made the resolution that I would rather be known as one of the most important artists if I'm not one of the most popular.
Yeah.
I mean, to have both is great, but one is greater than the other, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's, again, another powerful statement. And, talking about quality, I think this is something that I don't want to forget to talk about, because the work that you do with people from all different ages with meditation and mindfulness has been really interesting to watch. And I think you have an amazing opportunity there to impact a lot of people. And I frankly was thinking about this the other day is, I want my kids to hear some of the things that you've taught. I've tuned into some of the Instagram live stories that you've done recently. And I think, frankly, not only is it extremely helpful, but I had a thought about it that maybe is a little bit different than I do today, because you made it feel really relatable. And, one, thank you for that. I think that's great, but I'm kind of curious how you went down that journey of teaching. And I know you've also been working on building an app, which I'll say that since I'm an Android user and I might get booed for that, I still can't download. So I'm waiting for that. I'll put that out there.
End of the year, in another 6 to 8 months, we'll be up on Android. Yeah.
Can you tell me about that project and kind of how that all went about?
I have been teaching mindfulness for over 10 years. I started working with the Insight Meditation community of Washington, teaching their monthly family class, working with kids and their parents, basically. Through that process, when you're trying to teach something like mindfulness to a kid, you really have to work on your own understanding of it so that you can deliver it in a way that a 4-year-old can understand. Turns out that most human beings of any age need information delivered to them in the way that a 4-year-old can understand. That's not a diss. We just need that shit simple. At least that's the thesis statement of any paragraph, says what this is going to be about in as simple terms as possible. Hopefully. And for me, I'm a very verbose, I want to talk about it in all kinds of ways. And I love using all the words, the big words and the big concepts. But true understanding, I believe, comes from being able to communicate something simply. So that's been the blessing of working with kids, is that it's a constant check. Am I able to express this in the way that the youngest person with the youngest mind can understand? When we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about being present with kindness, to be right here, right now, in this moment, with as open and as kind of an attitude towards oneself and towards others as we can have. We're talking about not trying to push away our experience or hold on to it, but to let our experiences come and go and to learn from them as they come and go. In the course of teaching, I'm also living this rapper EDM life. Sometimes you go from a rave to teaching families and it's a trip. And you question, is all my behavior congruent with what I'm trying to express? And you do have these moments of just continuing to check yourself and see, am I putting forth the right things in the world in the right way? So it's a lot of introspection, and that's been a blessing ultimately. And I think that's what helps me make mindfulness relatable.
You can hear it when you talk. I mean, you're looking for the deeper meaning in what you're trying to say. So you can see the teacher in you.
Right.
And it's nice
thanks, man.
Seeing someone who knows what they're talking about, because the more you speak about it in its basic form, the easier it is for you. And as an artist myself, I love to paint. With painting, having that understanding of what you're doing helps you break the rules a little bit. You can kind of give shortcuts into understanding things. So I hear it in your voice and I hear it in the way you describe it. So it's
absolutely.
really nice.
Absolutely. One of my greatest musical inspirations is John Coltrane. And it's because he mastered the fundamentals to such a degree that he had the power to throw them all away and usher in this era of avant-gardism after completely mastering hard bop or conventional jazz.
Right.
So yeah, the mastery of the fundamentals and keeping it simple at first, it can't be overstated. So Balance is an app started by a company called Elevate. Elevate was Apple's App of the Year a few years ago. They do brain games for adults, and they wanted to do more for the world, so they created Balance. They reached out to me and another coach named Leia Santa Cruz, and the two of us are doing a personalized guided meditations through the app. It's designed to give the user a personalized meditation experience. So go to balanceapp.com, check that out. Android will be optimized by the end of the year, and it's ready right now for iOS.
Well, I mean, I have something else to hit on that, because talking about guided meditation, I love hearing guided meditation. I don't know if you know, I would assume you do, since you kind of have, if I'm not mistaken, heard Buddhist background. Yeah. Alan Watts. Have you heard of Alan Watts? Wow. I've gone to his guided meditation a few times, and just the way you speak and how he speaks. He likes to use really big words a lot of the time, but he breaks it down. But no, guided meditation is amazing when you don't have somebody around you. You just have sound.
So Alan Watts has recently become a huge touchstone for me. My sister, Tina Alimi, I was rehearsing with her for a show, and we had a little bit of downtime, and she was like, hey, listen to this. This is what I like to do in my downtime. And she turned on this live stream on YouTube, which is just Alan Watts 24/7. And
it's all day.
I was like, well, I was familiar with Alan Watts, but I had never really heard any of his talks. And it really, really was just an amazing experience to listen to Alan Watts teach and talk and really present these teachings in, it's kind of simple and complicated, but it's poetry. You know what I mean? Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's definitely a poet. He came at the right time.
He really
did.
Like
70s and 80s.
He really did.
Everything was just beautiful. And so the other question I was going to ask you was, with having to teach and do music, and I know at a certain point you said things were going topsy-turvy with music, so you went to doing the voiceover. With that, what actually motivates you to be creative?
You know, I think I'm just a naturally creative person. You know, when society kind of came up with that term, creatives, you know, there's a class of humans called the creatives. I was like, yeah, I'm one of those people. That's it. That's boom. You got me. So I just think that I'm a creative. And so creativity comes pretty naturally to me. I would always be wanting to do something creative. And in the way that I teach, there's an element of music and poetry. Creativity is just a part of how I express myself in the world.
Talking about the best, like what's a good partner when you're going through this industry of artistry?
A good partner in terms of like a relationship partner?
A relationship, because that's something in which you juggle constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, as an artist, I mean, I've had relationships where girls don't like me actually having time to myself or prefer the time with you. So it's something in which not only do you have to motivate yourself to be creative, but you have to motivate yourself to be a partner, to be a father. I know you have a daughter. I just had my daughter, so I'm trying to. You got 4.
Congratulations!
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had my baby Leia. So it's something in which I'm gonna try to figure out now. She was just born a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks now. So I'm soon.
That's number 1.
Yeah, this is number 1, first one.
Oh man!
Yeah, no, I'm the last of the Benavides to produce one.
To get them out.
It took a little
you
while,
did it though.
It's an EP coming out, baby Leia. No, but what's a good partner for you? I mean, how do you juggle that?
someone who really loves you is not just someone who's willing to stand by you, but also endure who you are. Because we all come with, I don't know, so much shit, honestly, you know, and that we ourselves are working out. And then someone literally says, I'll swim in this shit too with you, you know? And if someone's really willing to do that, that's precious, you know, because it's just tough being a human being, and you add another human being to that equation.
Also, I don't know about you guys, but for me, one of the things is when I was working on music, it would amplify sometimes some of the emotion that was going on. So I dealt with a lot of like trying to deal with balancing how I was feeling, let's say writing this song and not projecting it in that present moment with, I guess, family that wasn't in that moment helping me, let's say, with the song, but it's sometimes tied together. So it's good to have someone that understands that. And I think that's a challenge, definitely sometimes.
That's huge. If you can have someone who understands and really cares about your career and isn't there to just enjoy the fun times, but understands that this is just how you have to live your life, and this is not separate from life. This is life, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So I'm just super fortunate because it's been a balancing act that I haven't always kept in perfect balance, and I still have been able to keep my family intact and stuff. And I try not to take that for granted, because it's definitely not easy.
Out of curiosity, Born, do your kids dance to your music?
You know what? They were dancing to it today. I had a new record come in. One of the songs that I just recorded here in the house, and we're playing it, and my 4-year-old was just bouncing off the walls. When my kids are dancing to the music, I know that we probably did okay here.
Listen, I know a little bit ago we talked about just being kind of a natural creative and exploring these different things. So I'm kind of curious. I know you have a few singles out right now, but can you tell me a little bit about what you have going on at the moment? What's next? I know you have your new album. I was listening to Lotus Dream a little bit earlier, but what do you have going on?
Right now, there's an album called 1111 that I recorded with a French producer named Tanka. That album is rolling out one single at a time on a label called Tribal Trap. So the third single just dropped this past Wednesday. It's called Guillotine. The first single was called Tulum. The second single was called Lotus Dream. And Guillotine is out right now. And it'll be followed by another single called Horizon, dropping in 2 weeks. So we're dropping a new single every 2 weeks from this project. And we have about another, I think, 10 weeks to go as we're going to be dropping new singles. And then we'll drop the whole album as a single entity with some bonus records at the end of that rollout. The album is a hybrid trap EDM hip hop project, and it's beautiful. Yeah, so I hope y'all get it, and lots of emotion, lots of beautiful sounds, and it's really powerful. It's dedicated to the memory of my brother and former manager, Tom Dern, who passed away. I'm also continuing to record meditations for the Balance app, and we have new meditations rolling out, every few weeks. So check me out there. And I have a hip hop album called In This Moment that I plan on releasing after 1111 comes out. And I have a single produced by a very important producer. I'm not going to go too deep with that, but I have a single that I will be releasing after 1111. It'll be a big splash. But yeah.
Well, that's exciting. Now you have me really curious with all those things. The things I've heard on 1111 so far with Lotus Dream have been really, really awesome. I can't remember the last time I heard like a straight hip hop album from you, one of your tracks. Yeah. So now I'm really curious to hear that. Yeah. And now you piqued my interest with who this producer is. So
after 1111, we'll do this sort of surprise single, and then we'll drop In This Moment. So yeah. It'll be fun.
So how do people find out more about you? I know I follow you on Facebook. I'm part of that Facebook Born Eye family group. Yep. I've seen what you've done on Instagram lately, where you're going live with the meditations which are awesome.
Thanks, man.
But where should people go to find out more about you?
Those are two great places. I've got the website up, but that's just kind of like a like a hub, like you got to do that. You know, I don't really interact with people too much through the site, but you can always visit there to find out info about me and stuff. But really, everything is at Born Eye Music. So BORN, the letter I, the word music, Born Eye Music. And if you're on Facebook, just look up Born Eye Family and join the family. It's a lot of fun in there. And yeah, find me on Instagram. And I'm on Twitter here and there, but you know, it's just not my wheelhouse like that. Instagram and the Born Eye family, that's where we get it done.
Yeah, with Twitter, you gotta be on top of it constantly.
Oh man, it's just crazy.
Well, Born, is there anything else that we didn't touch on that you would like to make sure that the people listening to get a chance to hear from you?
The most important thing that anyone can do is spend their time deepening their presence, their love, and the expressions, the expressions of presence and love in the world. And it begins with loving yourself, developing a positive inner voice. We have a negative inner voice that's always telling us how we could be better and why we're not good enough. But we have the ability to generate positive thoughts and positive self-regard and showing ourselves that love. I say this, if your best friend was saying that they're having a terrible time and life sucks and they're ready to end it all, you'd give them all kinds of love and encouragement, and you tell them that you're great, and you'd remind them of all their good deeds and why life is worth living. But we don't tell ourselves that as a rule. You know, we're not conditioned to talk to ourselves that way, but we can talk to ourselves that way. So I just want to encourage everyone to develop a positive inner voice, talk to yourself with kindness, talk yourself back from the ledge if you're on the ledge. You are enough. And loving yourself is the conduit towards spreading more love out into the world. So, yeah, that's it. That's what I would like to share.
Thank you so much for spending the time with us today. My IV time is extremely valuable, so I appreciate every moment that you spent with us. And exactly what you just said is one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on. I think things that you've said and put out to me are extremely powerful and I think valuable for everyone to hear. So again, thank you so much. I can't wait to hear all the music that you're putting out and to spend more time learning from you, mindfulness and meditation, things that you're putting out with the Balance app. I'll look out for that.
Hearing you talk, this is my first time meeting you. I know Brian mentioned you years ago when you guys talked about a song together. And I always had it in my head, but hearing you now, I know you have a lot to say. So anytime you want to come back, I would love to have you to talk again, man. It's you speak the positivity as much as you want. I love it.
No doubt. Thank you, man.
But it was a pleasure, man.
Hey, congratulations on this new venture for you guys. It's an honor to be a part of the maiden voyage. I'd be happy to be a part of it again. So just, you guys are doing this well. This was a nice way to spend an hour. So give me a shout and hey, in the words of my dearly departed brother, Tom, hey, let's just continue.
And a special thank you to everyone listening to the debut episode of the Lighthouse Factory podcast. We can't tell you how excited we are to have you join us. Check us out at www.thelighthouseFactory.com or on social at The Lighthouse Factory. We can't wait to share the stories of various creatives and talk about their artistic and entrepreneurial journeys.